Well, thank you so much for joining us. Just wanted to start off with an introduction. The four of us met several months ago and started working on this, and we're going to talk about some of the individual provisions in here and then have a chance to answer questions. But it's important to remember that this proposal is just that, it's a proposal. We recognize that this should be the beginning of the conversation about how we reform the redistricting process in our state. There has been created in statute the Redistricting Reform Task Force that hopefully will soon begin meeting and going over possible changes to the state constitution as it pertains to redistricting. We're going to ask that our colleagues on the Redistricting Reform Task Force take this up as one of their ideas to consider. We recognize that through a collaborative process, hopefully what we've come up with today, although we believe it's very good, can be improved and made even better. So with that, I'll introduce Representative Celeste.
Thank you, Senator. And having sat through state government hearings last summer on this process and sensing everyone's frustration, both inside and outside the public, as well as colleagues, I got involved in trying to look if there were folks who wanted to try to make a difference, do this differently, do it in a way that people would have faith in the process. And had taken a few minutes to meet with Secretary Husted about what he had done in the past and what had gone wrong, what he suggested might be done to improve it. Talked to folks on our side who had been involved in the process, and discovered that there were other folks thinking likewise, and that we ought to try to get together to do this. So actually last fall, when we had a joint session, we all met together behind the rail in the House and started to talk about something that we could do together to come up with a proposal that would have a chance of flying within the legislature. And so we began our mission.
Yeah.
Representative Duffey.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the mechanics of the bill, the reasons why it's designed the way that it is. As everyone knows, there was Senate Joint Resolution 5 in the previous General Assembly that passed out of the Senate. That was Secretary of State Husted's bill when he was in the Senate. And we kept that 7-member commission, which it requires 5 out of 7 votes to pass any map, and also 2 votes from minority parties, so that even if the minority party is shut out of every single statewide office, they're at least going to have 2 votes in the legislature, and they would need unanimity in order to approve any map. So that forces bipartisanship. You can't do a map without a bipartisan vote. But we also wanted to go further. We were aware and cognizant of recent criticisms of the process that money was going to the political parties. People said that the money wasn't being used for the right purposes. We're not passing judgment one way or another, but we're going to clarify and eliminate those perceptions by creating an Office of Redistricting Information Services. And this would be nested within the Legislative Service Commission, and it would be charged with doing all the data collection, all the dissemination, and also making that data available to the general public so that they can submit maps on their own. One of the other things that we did that's unique in this bill is we flipped the prioritization when you're designing districts from counties over townships over municipalities to the smallest unit of government to the largest unit of government as the prioritization. You know, there's a saying that all politics is local, and it really should be, right? We should not have communities that are on borders with counties that get split unnecessarily. And this is particularly the case in Franklin County. You see this in Dublin, Westerville, Pickerington, and other areas. And we're going to have more of that across the state. And so this is a neutral provision. It doesn't prefer townships over cities or anything like that. It's just smallest unit to largest unit. And I'm going to let Senator LaRose talk a little bit about some of the other mechanics that we inserted into this bill.
As we were working on this and put together a consensus-based process, one that requires minority buy-in for any map to get passed, it was clear that there has to be a dispute resolution. There has to be a fixed point in time at which, if the parties have not been able to come to a resolution, that one is imposed for them. And our belief was that that should be swift and sure. The electoral process needs to be predictable and it can't be drug out forever. But also, that resolution process should be one that takes in the consideration of citizens, and is one that, quite honestly, would be avoided by the two dominant political parties in the state. We hoped to put in a dispute resolution process that would be arduous enough in the eyes of the powers that be that they would want to avoid it. And so what we came up with is that at a certain point in time, if the majority and the minority could not reach a consensus on a map, that they would each be given 1 week to come up with their last best offer, if you will. That each of those groups would submit that best offer, and that would be paired with a third map, which would be a citizen-submitted map, which my colleagues will talk about in just a minute. And then those 3 maps would go on the ballot for the voters to decide that November. In addition, if the two majority and minority political parties could not come to a consensus and reach a map that both parties could agree upon, then the maps for the next 10 years would be decided by the voter, but something else would happen. There would be an open primary or a nonpartisan primary for the next 10 years. This is not an unheard of process. It's used in a few other states, 3 in particular, and it's used for both federal and state legislative races. And it would be, I think, a great disincentive to not reach that important resolution and would come to a consensus map.
We added the idea of having citizen maps be permitted to be submitted and to be considered by this commission, and added what Senator LaRose just called the kind of situation where you might have the need to have a third map to decide from if you can't decide between the two. The question is, if you have a citizen map submitted, how would you best make a judgment about which of the citizen maps are the best to come up with? And to them, Senator Sawyer came up with a great suggestion.
What we decided was that each side in the dispute would get a vote. And in order to break what would almost certainly be a tie vote, then the two sides would select a third decider. It's a technique that's used in many different kinds of dispute resolution settings, all the way from labor disputes, court disputes, all kinds of different things. We thought it would be suitable for this setting as well. And so that's what we employ in this to break a 2-to-2 tie. The two sides would each pick a third, and that would be how we would resolve that kind of impasse. Just by way of summary, just let me say that we had hoped to expand our group, but thought that we were running short on time. We'd like to see more people involved in this, and I believe that having spoken to our respective leaderships, that we will engage other members in the work that we've been doing. We are just basically 4 legislators spread across both chambers and both political parties who came together in what we believe has been an honest and forthright conversation about a difficult topic in order to find real common ground. And I can say that we believe that we've done so, and that we have never, in the course of those conversations, gotten to a point where we couldn't find a way to resolve whatever differences we had. The conversations were filled with an awful lot of creative ideas that we came to by consensus, not by voting things up or down, but simply by coming to common agreement. I think both the Democrats and the Republicans in this process found one another unfailingly forthright. It was a straightforward set of conversations. We agreed on our goals. We agreed on the principles that would guide us. And then we stuck by those principles as we came up with the proposal that you see before us. And I think perhaps the most important proposal that we came up with is the one that Senator LaRose began with. And that is that this is not anything that we see as the end of a process, but rather the beginning of a conversation that will include the statutory committee that will go forward from this point to work on redistricting, and we hope to involve the entire General Assembly. That what we have here today, we hope will be the beginning of that conversation, and we don't entertain any illusions that it will be the end. But it's a good beginning, and one that I think came forward in a constructive and straightforward way. So with that,